Welcome to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Wade Teamer. We have waited years for this moment, ladies and gentlemen. As of today, the United States is officially operating all of its financial services under the ISO 20022 messaging standard. Put simply, the digital economy will no longer look the same, ladies and gentlemen. And in this episode, we're going to break down some key events and key stories that are definitely going to set the tone for the rest of the year. Starting with Crypto Week. Starting today, running all the way until the 18th. The U.S. Government Financial Services Committee and related parties will be discussing and potentially voting on the Clarity Act, Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act, as well as the Genius Act. Now, you guys know me. I love to pull from history to give us an idea exactly where we're going. This reminds me of an act that was passed in 1992 called the Scientific and Advanced Technology Act. Why? Well, just 4 short years after this act passed, we got the internet boom of the early 2000s. So my question is, are we getting ready to see the same thing? Feels like it. We're also going to be talking a little bit of Hedera, ladies and gentlemen. They have been added to the Reserve Bank of Australia's project Acacia. Now, this will see wholesale CBDCs tested in DLT environments. They're looking to see if they can set up a system that is operational at scale on our favorite DLT networks, and Hedera was chosen. We'll definitely dive into the details. And we're also going to dive into the Flare ecosystem. Yeah, their relationship with Vivo Power, as well as their recent moves in the realm of DeFi when it comes to bringing those opportunities to XRP holders. They've made quite a few advancements in the last few days, and I can't wait to share them with you. We also got to talk a little bit more ICP, ladies and gentlemen. The self-writing internet. It's getting ready to go live here in the next 24 hours. And I've done a little bit more reading on this subject. I think ICP is getting ready to not surpass Ethereum, but become a very good alternative. Very good alternative. And then lastly, guys, we got a feel-good story here, okay? I'm going to introduce you to the Flow blockchain because they're providing fan experiences unlike anyone else. Now, you'll notice this as a pattern on this channel. I'm going to cover the entirety of the blockchain space. And one of my favorite things to get into that isn't payments is fan engagement, sports, okay? And this is a feel-good story. You see the gentleman here in the strike shirt, the UFC strike shirt. How was he able to get this experience? Through fan tokens. So, got a lot to share with you guys. Again, if you want to support the channel, head on over to bio.site/DHN crypto. You will be able to access our library of educational resources to help you become a much better crypto investor. Because without fundamental knowledge of what you're investing in, how can you expect to make any real money? So, links to the bio site will be in the description under this video, as well as the pinned comment. Now, let's get into the show, guys. We got to start
Republicans have put forward
here.
Clear principles.
We're going to pause this here, slide it.
The Banking Committee, Republicans.
Working with a new deck here. Y'all got to bear with me. But yes, let's start with Crypto Week and why it reminds me of the fateful year of my birth, 1992. To add context to this segment, we're going to start with Mr. Tim Scott, Senate Banking Committee Chairman, and his comments on the rules and regulations for digital assets that are set to be discussed this week.
Have put forward clear principles for market structure legislation. Principles that recognize the need to clarify and clearly define what is a commodity, what is a security, and how digital assets can trade and be custodied in a way that fosters innovation while protecting investors. We don't need more roadblocks. We need rules that actually work. That means legislation that will, number one, clearly define which tokens are securities. 2, supports modern trading infrastructure. 3, ensures appropriate illicit finance protections are in place. And 4, protects investors while fostering innovation. And let's set the record straight. Crypto isn't lawless. It's traceable. In fact, crypto companies are helping law enforcement track illicit activity with greater precision than traditional finance allows. The data shows that more illegal activity still happens with cash than with crypto.
That defeats that whole narrative, right? But the agenda here, when you really go back into the archives, guys, this act here, the Scientific and Advanced Technology Act of 1992, when you dig into this bill, you'll notice that the narrative is a lot similar. They were treating the internet as if it were blockchain in its early stages, where they were trying to clean up the rules of the road for the internet. They were also trying to get more access available for people to use the internet. I was completely unaware of this. And it's amazing how fast things change, because in the early 90s, the internet wasn't for everyone. The internet was controlled primarily by the US government. But that act changed everything. Changed everything, ladies and gentlemen. Shortly after the act, we got the internet boom. Companies like Amazon went public. This also encouraged innovation in the internet space, which led to the creation of search engines like AOL and then ultimately Google. So the connections that I'm trying to make here is this crypto week is a lot more important than we may realize. Yes, prices are very frothy right now. Bitcoin cracked $122,000 this morning. Just remember, though, this was all in the cards. Because let me show you what else this reminds me of. We've been talking a lot about this recently. G20 roadmap to enhance cross-border payments. Pretty much all of these goals have been met. But the parallel I want you to see is this roadmap not only taught people what this technology is, but it showed them how to use it in a safe way. That is echoed in the attitudes centered around the internet in the early 90s. And there were a number of government-based initiatives to kind of get people ready for this wave of internet that was about to happen. We have seen the same thing play out since 2020, maybe going back even sooner, because the earliest records of this plan go back to 2016. 2016. Again, the aim is to address the fees that are involved if I want to send you $100,000. I'm in the United States, you're in Japan. With blockchain, I can send you that $100,000 on Stellar, XRP, whatever network, less than 5 minutes. Boom, you got the money, tax free. If I were to send $100,000 to you using traditional methods, it'd take a week and a half. This bank would need to get a piece. Your bank would need to get a piece. Taxes involved. We'd have to fill out a form for it. It's a whole lot of stuff. All of those extra steps made the process more expensive. Thus, the reason why G20 nations came together. And if I'm not mistaken, you can even find traces of this conversation going back to 2008, because it was the financial crisis of 2008 that triggered the changes in the financial markets that we are living with today. I'm willing to debate that. But the point I'm making here is the same thing happened in the early 90s. And in 4 short years after the Scientific and Advanced Technology Act was passed, Amazon went public, Google hit the scene. AOL, Napster, we remember the internet giants. And that run lasted for about a decade after the passing of this act. So I know a lot of people like to rely on their charts, cycles, things like that. But what about the macro level events such as these that open the door for investors to even get in the market to cause the price action in the first place? There's another act that passed a few short years later in 1996 called the Telecommunications Act. This one more so focused on the telecom market, but anybody who knows a thing or two about the internet, you need some type of phone line, especially back then. You needed a phone line to access the internet, so they were hand in hand. Telecommunications Act 1996 passes. Not only did this open up the doors for internet companies to go commercial, it also allowed media entities to get involved as well. So the SATA is what I like to call it, of 1992 resembles the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Surveillance Act as well as the Clarity Act, because those two focus on the structure of the blockchain market as well as its definitions, similar to what the SATA did in 1992. The Telecommunications Act, we may still be a ways away from that, but you can also look at that as the Genius Act of our industry, because stablecoins, much like media properties and the telecommunication side in relation to the internet, stablecoins are the conduit that connects our industry to traditional finance. So, to wrap it all up here, without the Scientific and Advanced Technology Act of 1992 to establish the rules of the road, it wouldn't have paved the way for the internet companies that we are very familiar with today to begin to rise. The Telecommunications Act of 96 that came 4 years later essentially gave them a nitrous oxide boost and sent them on their way. The Stablecoin Act combined with the CBDC surveillance and clarity are essentially both acts combined into one thing. And that's fitting. That makes sense, because I wouldn't expect the timeline to be as long with the technology that is twice as fast. And it's already built upon the internet and looking to improve upon the internet. So I really wanted to share this with you guys because it was compelling. It was very compelling to me. And I remember last year I spent a few good months trying to find parallels between the rate of adoption of blockchain technology and other technologies from the past, like video games, telecommunications. There were a lot of parallels between certain eras of adoption for these technologies, and it gives us an idea of where we're headed with these technologies. Like I said, when we looked into the G20 roadmap and it all began to click, there's something about the number 14. All of this stuff was pre-planned. It was in the cards, so it really didn't matter what you held. Yes, there will be companies that fall off. That's a given. But where we are right now is the beginning of the boom. It's the beginning of it's the wick is about to be lit, ladies and gentlemen. That's the best way that I can put it. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into some altcoins, starting with Hedera, ladies and gentlemen. Project Acacia, Reserve Bank of Australia and DFCRC announced chosen industry participants, and ASIC provides regulatory relief for tokenized asset settlement research projects. So for Hedera has been around the experimentation discussion for many years. And there's a window open behind me, so if there's extra noise, forgive me. It's hot. But Hedera has been around this experimentation discussion several times before. This particular story reminds me of when Hedera was wrapped up in the experimentations around the digital dollar project here in the United States. This story is much similar in the sense that Hedera, along with Red Belly Network, hell of a name, R3/4, Canvas Connect, and other EVM-compatible networks, will take place in a list of 19 pilot use cases, which will involve real money and real asset transactions, and 5 proof-of-concept use cases involving simulated transactions. These include fixed income, private markets, trade receivables, and carbon credits. So this also echoes what Australia is looking to do with their own blockchain regulatory path. MiCA was the last domino to be placed. The United States, with the bills that they're putting forth, they're tipping these dominoes over. So now what we're going to see, and this is also emphasized in another story on Hedera we'll cover a little bit later, but countries like Australia, of course the United States, United Kingdom, and other countries that are attached to these nations are starting to write out their digital asset rule books. We are about to see a wave of regulation sweep throughout the entire world. Now, leaning on the first segment, that was just in the United States. The SADA in 1992 and the Telecommunications Act in 96, that was just the United States. Yes, it had reverberating effects around the world. But I would also assume that other countries put in place similar measures to allow the internet market to blossom in their areas of the world. That is what we're seeing right now in the crypto space. So in that context, it makes this story that much more compelling, especially if you're holding Hedera. So I liked what I see here. What brought this to the surface, and I believe I do have it here. Let's pull it up. Nope, this is another quote. We'll save that. But this came to the surface because it was discovered that Australian Payment Plus, Hedera council member, was also wrapped up in this. Now, I read their press release. They're very solid in the fact that this isn't a crypto token that they're looking to issue. They aren't looking to issue any new assets on these DLTs. They're merely looking to use the DLT to move tokenized assets back and forth. That is something that we all need to really understand. You don't want a scenario where the token itself is always being moved, because that has added sell pressure. That brings added sell pressure. That is what you see with some video game projects and meme tokens, where the incentive is based on how much of the token you can accumulate. And part of that, people tend to sell off in order to get the monetary value for what they earned. What you want is the network to be the background layer, which brings in the quote from this individual here. Hard to tell, boy or girl, it really don't matter. But the first part of this quote, I don't agree with. That is not true. CBDC pilot programs used XRP Ledger for settlement layer. Every single one. No. Project Agora uses Ethereum. Mariana uses Ethereum, and Enbridge also uses Ethereum. There is one that Ripple is a part of, or was a part of. I believe it's Icebreaker. But to say all, okay, it's a bit much. Tokenized liquidity. But the last part of your statement here, very true. Quant is an interoperable layer, and HBAR is a data layer. HBAR being the data layer. That is how you should approach HBAR going forward, as a data layer. It's also how you should approach looking at any of these assets going forward. To expand on this, XRP would be a conversion layer. Stellar would be the interface layer or the wallet layer. We're going to be talking about ICP coming up here. That is another infrastructure layer or interoperable layer, like he defined Quant as. So you're really hitting on something here with this quote. And I added it to this segment because I think that is what Hedera is placed as in this particular relationship. I think that's what Hedera's role will be, is the data layer. In the past, Hedera has been wrapped up in these DLT pilot conversations. And what I've noticed is a pattern that may be a bit concerning. Hedera is always involved with the experimentation, but after the experiment, what goes live ultimately falls on Ethereum. This is what I've seen. I think going forward, what we're going to observe in the market are these networks beginning to figure out what they are best at. I believe Hedera is best at being a data aggregation layer. This goes down to how it's built. I believe Hedera will ultimately become that data repository for payments, gaming, and artificial intelligence. And when you have the payment side, you can tokenize whatever you want. If you're tokenizing a digital asset from a game, Hedera's ledger will store the information. If you want to tokenize your language learning model, Hedera can store that information. With it being the data layer, that still opens up Hedera for major adoption, because data in the digital world, that's the new oil. So I know I have had my feelings about Hedera recently, and that more so came from the leadership. But I even forgot in that moment, we're dealing with open source technologies here. Open source technologies, ladies and gentlemen. So anyone who can build will build. It seems as though Australia, they have chosen Hedera, and I like to see it. Definitely like to see it, guys. So, yes, we got ICP coming up next. Before we get into that, guys, we're going to take a break really quickly, pay some bills, but when we get back, we're going to dive into ICP and Caffeine AI. Oh, this thing really has me interested, guys. Self-writing internet? What is that going to do to Ethereum?
Hey guys, I got a quick message for you. Let's say you're looking to buy some crypto, like the ones mentioned in this video. Consider using our crypto exchange partner, Uphold. With Uphold, you get access to more than 200 crypto assets through its simple-to-use trading platform. Uphold has been around more than a decade, so it is a name you can trust. With over $2 billion in reserves and $44 billion in trading volume, I've yet to lose a trade on Uphold. To the more experienced investor out there, Uphold also has a line of precious metals and national currencies for more diversification. For me, I'm having fun using Uphold's baskets tool. Uphold lets us set aside a certain amount of money to invest in different sectors of crypto. With one click, you can diversify into the big three, meme coins, or the financial assets like Hedera, Stellar, and XDC. But listen, crypto assets are very volatile, and it is always best to manage your risk and do your own research before using any platform. I recommend Uphold because before I was an affiliate, I was and still am a user. So if you use the link below, it helps support the channel. I want to thank you in advance.
So I want to dive a bit deeper into the self-writing internet for the internet computer. We're going to go to a clip. It's a demo, Dominic showing off what Caffeine AI can truly do. Check this out.
Centralized infrastructure. Okay, that's pretty cool. What is the internet computer? The internet computer is a revolutionary decentralized network that provides serverless cloud functionality, hosting tamper-proof and unstoppable apps and AI. That's cool. All right. Okay, so let's start off to get oriented with a really, really simple app. Just a single page with a smiley on it. So I'm going to tell it, create a smiley web page. All right. So it's going to write a spec, but it may just jump past because it is writing a spec. It's so simple. And then after that, it's going to write the code. And you can see in the mobile view, it's kind of rotating through this wheel. So we started in chat, then it went to spec. Now it's gone to code. And then the next step will be draft. So it's finished writing the app's code. We can see that from the chat. And is now deploying it to the network. Boom.
So you guys saw what I just saw, right? That's a web page built in less than 90 seconds on blockchain. So I'm taking this bet on the internet computer primarily for 3 reasons. 1, ICP has found a way to build the assembly line of blockchain development. I was doing a little bit more reading on Caffeine because this is something they have been planning, preparing, developing, tweaking, tooling for almost a year, ladies and gentlemen. I was able to find this Medium post here that gives us a little bit more details. With SWI, building digital experiences is no longer limited to those who can write complex code or have access to massive IT budgets. Whether you're an individual, entrepreneur, company, or even government agency, you now have the power to create without limits. Government agency, you say. Interesting. Want to launch an e-commerce store, messaging app? The AI will build it quickly. Personal branding site or wedding event app for your family? Just tell the AI. This really has my idea engine going. All right? I'm trying to see, because you guys know I have been wanting to build on blockchain for years. Like, it's cool the position I have now, but I'm looking for staying power. ICP may have just found a way, may have just created a way for me to do that. This is another element too, because yes, with Caffeine, a lot more apps are going to be created out of thin air on ICP. With that, you do run the risk of crap apps popping up that don't genuinely do anything. But then you have those that do. They're going to need the ability to upgrade, self-improve. They covered that part too. They say this challenge has been addressed by Motoko, a programming language developed from the ground up by DFinity. Enables seamless upgrades on the internet computer while preserving data integrity. It allows developers to modify memory structures during upgrades, ensuring that no data is lost in the process. So now, not only do you have the ability to build, but they gave you a toolkit to maintain what you have built. I'm sorry, I'm not missing the internet computer run. All-time high for internet computer, a lot of people don't know this, $758. That thing's sitting at like 5 cents right now, ladies. Or $5. $5.35, ladies and gentlemen. The rally that the rest of the market is seeing hasn't quite trickled down to it yet. But on a long-term perspective, this makes internet computer the ultimate AI play. Ultimate AI play. And I used to follow networks like Fetch AI for that type of thing. ICP has found a way to create the assembly line of blockchain development. And that will have a significant impact on Ethereum down the road. Because if anyone can build now, what's keeping people on Ethereum in that case? Ethereum will have to respond to this, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I was wondering if I had the price chart up yet. You can see, though, internet computer is nowhere near its highs. Nowhere near. Unfortunately, it's about 99% down from its all-time high, which is the reason why I think a lot of people give it flack. But I have observed so many times in this space that, guys, that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. I remember when ICP had its ICO launched on Coinbase. That $750 all-time high, a lot of that came from Coinbase liquidity. But they made a number of promises since then, and they've delivered on it.
No.
Okay? They've delivered on those promises. And the last question I have to ask in relation to this Caffeine AI, can it be integrated into chain fusion? And if so, can apps that are built with caffeine run on Bitcoin, Solana, or even Ethereum? What are the chances of that? You don't even have to give me Ethereum or Solana. The ability to build on Bitcoin is now optimized and streamlined and open to everyone? Come on now. That's a genius play. That is a genius play. And ICP already has a number of applications that bring yield to Bitcoin. You can do NFTs in the form of BRC20s, which are oracles on the Bitcoin network. I know we cover primarily the alternative assets, the DLTs. I get that. But do not sleep on the big B. All right? Bitcoin is our Patrick Mahomes. It is our Patrick Mahomes. It is our Travis Kelce. It is our Taylor Swift, okay? It is our Taylor Swift. So, to wrap it all up, man, basically what I'm getting at here is with Caffeine AI, I think Internet Computer has a serious shot to challenge Ethereum. I genuinely do. So, set the launch July 15th, which is tomorrow as of time of recording this. So we'll see. We'll definitely see how it plays out. Now, coming up next, we're going to talk a little Flare Network. We're going to jump to an audio clip here. Flare's Firelight, looking to bring XRP to a wider audience. I'm going to play the audio, and then I'm going to share with you the perspective that I got from it.
So not only are we speaking to institutions, we're speaking to institutions that hold assets on behalf of retail and people that are using it every day. So there's a bunch of different angles that we're going, right? Ultimately, the core piece is delivering yield back to users that are holding XRP today. There's a variety of ways that you can do that. Firelight, kind of how I think about it, is that first stop for many people that want to set and forget. And then there's active strategies that you can run from there, right? So there's a few different active strategies that we've been thinking about that you could run. There's like synthetic longs that you can have to hedge the position and then like borrow against the XRP and then run some delta neutral positions. There's a bunch of different ways that you can run, let's say, financially engineered strategies that can deliver extra yield back, let's say, past Firelight. But how I think about Firelight is that it's going to be a revenue positive business that simply delivers revenues back to XRP holders.
What it appears that's being built with Flare are traditional financial instruments on the blockchain, in blockchain. I'm sensing another pivot here. But that's a good thing, because we're starting to see those same instruments pop up on Bitcoin. They've lived on Ethereum since day one. So it is a very profitable use case. So kudos to Flare for bringing that to the XRP ledger. There was another piece to this, though, that stood out to me above everything else. And don't worry, we'll touch on Vivo as well. But it's this portion here. With Flare's yield strategies, they can offer simple opt-in XRP staking. No DeFi expertise required. Their relationship with Uphold continues to evolve. We have witnessed recently Uphold offering 4% back in XRP for a trial period on your your paychecks when they're direct deposited on Uphold. Clearly, this is testing for what they could potentially do in the future. Maybe as soon as next year, where alongside their staking offerings like Polkadot, Solana, Ethereum, what else do they have on there? Flare, which you don't even have to lock your Flare. You can just be holding Flare on Uphold and get extra Flare tokens. But this is clearly a test run, a trial period for what they're using the Flare network to do. And this tweet just emphasized that even further, and it brought it to the surface for me. So now my question is, if they're able to do it for Uphold, what's stopping them from doing it for Coinbase or Robinhood, which recently now does staking for Solana and Ethereum out of the nowhere? But what's stopping them from doing this for other exchanges? If they pull that off, the demand for the Flare network will go through the roof, ladies and gentlemen. Through the roof. To the point of I'm witnessing a pivot. This does take it away from solely bringing smart contract functionality to non-smart contract networks. Flare is now a DeFi protocol for non-DeFi networks, which is even bigger when you truly dive into it. That's a much bigger market to serve, because as we've seen with the XRP ledger and the sidechain, this makes the ledger EVM compatible, which means it can run smart contracts on its own. And I believe I was one of the first to put forth the question in the space, what does this mean for the Flare network? It means that the Flare network has to move a lot faster. And they also have to pivot ever so slightly to not offering solely smart contracts, but we'll build you an entire DeFi dashboard. We'll build your DeFi ecosystem for you. I think that's a much more powerful use case for the Flare network, as opposed to just simply offering smart contracts to networks that can't do them on their own, because we have now observed that it's merely an implementation of code and you can run your own smart contracts. It must be quite expensive. It must be quite expensive, because when I'm looking at the track record here, Ripple didn't do that for the ledger until after RLUSD dropped, and they ran up almost $700 million on that sucker. So, I found that to be very interesting. Stellar, we didn't get Sora we didn't get Sora to the market till a little bit after MoneyGram access. You know? So, looking at it that way, I would assume smart contract implementation is tricky and expensive. And if you don't do it from jump, it's harder to implement later. But bringing it back to Flare, they're now entering the DeFi space. Well, can't say now entering, but they've planted the flag in the DeFi space. And that should definitely drive more demand if they maintain the focus of allowing networks that can't do DeFi on their own and bringing them into the Flare network. I paused for a moment because I had to think, can DeFi be programmed? I don't think so. I don't think that can be as easily implemented. So as long as that is a primary challenge for blockchain networks, Flare network is going to be very valuable. But let's talk a little bit about their relationship with Vivo and with Vivo Power. Vivo and Flare launched a definitive strategic partnership to deploy $100 million in XRP for institutional yield. Now, I definitely did some looking into this Vivo Power because I ran across a headline that talked about some troubles that they had with the NASDAQ. Because one of the biggest things that everyone is talking about is, NASDAQ listed company is holding XRP in a MicroStrategy type relationship, which is very true. As it stands right now, their NASDAQ standing is good. They received like $65 million from a Saudi Arabian investment fund. So we'll set that one to the side. What I see for Flare is not only do they now have the retail side on lock, they're now expanding to institutional players. Sorry about that. They're expanding to institutional players, which means their DeFi offering is sort of pick up and play, where you can plug it into your existing financial system. Again, representing a bit of a pivot here from solely offering smart contract services to building out your entire DeFi backend. And they're leveraging XRP to make it happen. So this looks good. This definitely looks good. But something else that popped up when I was looking into Vivo Power. They're getting ready to launch another company. This company is called Carrot Digital. Carrot Digital is a crypto mining company. You want to know what they've been mining the last couple of years? Dogecoin. I bring that up because wasn't the other asset Dogecoin that Flare had in their roadmap to bring DeFi and yield to? Now they've partnered with a company who has been mining Dogecoin for years. I would assume they have their own stockpile. And if they're also if they're in crypto mining, what's stopping them from mining Bitcoin? Here's the scenario I'm trying to put together here. The entirety of the F assets ecosystem includes not just XRP, but Dogecoin, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and a couple others. Those three networks, Dogecoin, Bitcoin, Litecoin, they're still proof of work, which means they can be mined. Vivo Power and Flare have come together. I'm pretty sure Hugo is aware that Vivo Power owns a crypto mining company. The quote from Uphold CEO, about bringing staking to Flare, he mentioned that the XRP ledger wasn't a proof of stake network, so that's why we went to Flare. This shows that it works. The game plan that Flare has works. So what I'm getting at here altogether is that they were able to successfully bring yield to a non-proof of stake network. How easy will it be to bring yield to the proof of work networks that they have been mining through Carrot Digital for all this time? On the back end, this Vivo Power play is going to be a lot better for Flare in the long run than XRP. And that's absolutely fine, because I'm not saying that Vivo won't increase on this 100 million into institutional XRP fund. But Flare, they're setting up for later down the line with this one. They really are. So taking it all in together, ladies and gentlemen, Flare has successfully brought DeFi to the XRP ledger. They've successfully allowed centralized exchanges like Uphold to bring yield-bearing opportunities to networks that don't have those opportunities in front of their customers, opening the door for other exchanges to do the exact same thing. In addition to that, Vivo Power and their connections to the crypto mining space also sets up a depth for the Flare Network's other F assets, Dogecoin and Bitcoin. Man, with that in place, very interested to see what comes from it. I'm not going to make any crazy predictions here. What I am here to do is to show you the puzzle pieces, and we can sit here at the coffee table and put these pieces together. That is what I see coming out of this. They established the XRP play, but we'll be hearing a lot more about Flare, Doge, Flare, and Bitcoin in the coming months. So, with that, guys, let's hop back over to the terminal. Talk a little bit more Hedera. This is a story that actually hit my radar this morning, so we kind of had to slide it in. But Lloyd's Bank, Arbiton, used tokenized collateral for FX trades on Hedera, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a little bit more than just testing here. What we have here, UK regulated digital asset exchange Archax announced it facilitated tokenized collateral movement between Lloyd's Banking Group and Arbiton Investments to support a foreign exchange transaction. Explicitly, the transaction involved a tokenized money market fund and a tokenized UK gilt. If someone knows what that is, let me know down in the comments. Both hosted on the Hedera public permissioned DLT platform. I always like to highlight where the network is implicitly used, because there is so much misinformation in this space. All right. But we have it here. The platform itself was used as part of this transaction, backed by some very big players. Archax is becoming one of my favorite companies in this space, because ever since they've gotten involved, ladies and gentlemen, they have been about what they said they were going to be about. And this is just further evidence of that. What we don't see, though, is full RWA offerings on Hedera yet. Clearly, they are still trying to figure out where Hedera is best at, but they're still moving tokenized assets on the platform. In addition to that, Archax will be facilitating staking, because Archax also does institutional crypto custody. HBAR is one of the assets that they offer. So when they have clients, custodial clients holding HBAR, they are getting yield on that HBAR. That's a private placement. Likely we won't see it, but if they're able to do it in that private environment, the retail implications are infinite. The overarching factor when it comes to Archax is where they are. FCA regulated institution in the United Kingdom. So they have the regulatory, green lights to create and distribute these products, but they can't fully promote them yet because the UK is still finalizing all of their rules around digital assets. So I've made this point in the past when we were talking about Archax and their selection of Hedera. This is great company to keep because on its own, Archax is handling its business the way it's supposed to. Let me reemphasize that a little more. Archax, this is courtesy of RWA.xyz. Since the beginning of this year, they have tokenized a little over $100 million on the XRP ledger. Money market funds, as well as a couple of other private credit offerings, if I'm not mistaken. $100 million. This was just as recent as June. It was at 113 million on the ledger. I show you that so at any point in time, when Archax is ready, they will open the floodgates on the Hedera network. They can easily open the floodgates. Now, just so we have clarity all the way around here, earlier in the show, I mentioned how Hedera may be best suited for something else, the data layer. So with the testing that Archax and the experimentation that Archax is doing on Hedera, each time they have a successful transaction, the process, the parameters are being recorded on the Hedera ledger. They'll permanently be there, which makes the next transaction easier. It also makes that next transaction faster. So I am very curious as to how the deployment is faster on some networks as opposed to others. That's something I've always been curious about. But it's good to see the continuing work on these networks to get them to click. To get them to click properly. Like I said, I'll reemphasize this point. I think we are about to enter an era in the market where these networks finally realize what they are best at. It's a natural evolution of things, especially when you're getting into business endeavors. Perfect example. Take a look at how this channel has evolved over the last 5 years. I have figured out there are things I'm great at, and there are things that I am not good at all. Okay? Y'all can point them out to me. But this is just the nature of the beast. So, down the line, I could see this coming to Hedera. Or I could see Hedera as being positioned as a software registry, if that's the proper term, for companies that go to Archax. Let's say they want history of the performance of their offerings. All that information is stored and can be verified on blockchain, on a ledger, and that ledger be Hedera. It would look a lot like what Franklin Templeton and Stellar Lumens are doing. Where, remember, in 2019, Franklin built on top of Stellar on their own. They bought a bunch of Stellar, created a trust line, then started tweaking from the inside and created their own product. Then Franklin Templeton went to Stellar, had the conversation, and the transactions in that offering were then added onto Stellar's blockchain, and now our Stellar is the primary database for that offering. So I could see Hedera landing in a similar spot to that when it comes to capital markets and RWA plays. So, Archax, keep your eyes on them. Keep your eyes on Archax for sure. And the key piece, though, of all of this is the United Kingdom is moving lockstep with the United States and the EU when it comes to a digital asset framework. So we may be in the preliminary phases, the preliminary stages of all of this. Now, by 2030, guys, I'm curious to see what the gripes will be. I'll just put it that way, because there will be so much positivity in the market. There will be so many things that we can point to and say, look, this is what blockchain does, or this is what Hedera does, or this is what Stellar does. There'll be so much of that. It'll be a beautiful thing, ladies and gentlemen. So, last story. Let's talk a little bit of the Flow blockchain, guys. UFC strike. Before we get to that, though, going to take a little bit of break here. When we come back, it's going to be a feel-good story. I'm going to share with you a gentleman who was able to get a inside the octagon experience. Bump shoulders, rub shoulders with some of his favorite fighters. And it was all thanks to a fan app that was built on the Flow blockchain.
Hey guys, I got a quick message for you. Let's say you're looking to buy some crypto, like the ones mentioned in this video. Consider using our crypto exchange partner, Uphold. With Uphold, you get access to more than 200 crypto assets through its simple-to-use trading platform. Uphold has been around more than a decade, so it is a name you can trust. With over $2 billion in reserves and $44 billion in trading volume, I've yet to lose a trade on Uphold. To the more experienced investor out there, Uphold also has a line of precious metals and national currencies for more diversification. For me, I'm having fun using Uphold's baskets tool. Uphold lets us set aside a certain amount of money to invest in different sectors of crypto. With one click, you can diversify into the big three, meme coins, or the financial assets like Hedera, Stellar, and XDC. But listen, crypto assets are very volatile, and it is always best to manage your risk and do your own research before using any platform. I recommend Uphold because before I was an affiliate, I was and still am a user. So if you use the link below, it helps support the channel. I want to thank you in advance.
But you can take a look here. You can see me fumbling around with the video. What we're watching here, UFC fan, Nashville. Post-fight, he was able to, oh, look at the blood there. He was able to get in to the octagon. Exclusive fan experience here. You can see VeChain's logo there, crypto.com, right? But all of this was possible, guys, thanks to UFC Strike, which is an app that runs on the Flow blockchain. Now, Flow is a blockchain that has been around for a number of years. As a matter of fact, all of this NFT craze really came from Flow because they hit the market in 2020, 2021, if I'm not mistaken, with NBA Top Shot, and it worked. There wasn't any controversy around whether or not the NFT was actually backed by the NBA or anything like that. No, these Top Shot NFTs sold for quite a lot of money when they first dropped. And they never really went through that period of doubt like other NFT projects of the time. The 2022 bear market snubbed out a lot of it, even if it was working, got snubbed out. But even still, Flow has been building. You can see here, they specialize in various forms of NFTs, from collectibles to fan engagement in the world of sports. Look at the names here. Disney, Mattel, Hot Wheels, Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster. You ever wondered where, or better yet, I've made this point before. When we're dealing with Web3, the conversation isn't about banks, financial institutions, and governments. When we're dealing with Web3, the conversation is around media companies, entertainment companies, and consumer products, consumer companies, because they are the ones that are really showing the most interest in this NFT technology. Hot Wheels. Got a heap ton of those right outside this door here, okay? Recently, this was this Christmas. Son gets a new he's the Hot Wheels City thing, okay? So there was a new version where you get a car, it's got a QR code on the bottom, you scan the car, that car can be played in the racing game, the mobile app. But that's branded by Hot Wheels. So that's not directly involving flow. I really need to dig into what specifically they're doing with Hot Wheels, because that was new to me. But if Hot Wheels were able to make that VR experience on their own, imagine what they can do with a blockchain like Flow. Now, of course, I'm not saying go ape crazy into Flow. That ain't my style. That ain't my style. What I am here to do is expose you to the assets that are pushing the needles in their own way. Those are the stories that I like to collect and put into the show. So that way you get a full dynamic overview of the blockchain world. Now, we just looked at collectibles. Let's take a look at sports and games. There's Top Shot, like I mentioned. NFL all day. That was 2023, 2024. This, we'll see. Digital collectibles backed by the NFL Players Association, which is up under the NFL. It's the governing body for everything that goes on with players. Schedules, travel, payments, media, all of that. That runs through the NFL Players Association. Flow linked up with them. They're going to be doing digital collectibles. UFC Strike, we saw the gentleman in the clip having the experience that he had. What this does is represents the next era of entertainment. Finance has officially penetrated everything. And to some, that may be immensely annoying. I totally get that. When you look into the world of blockchain games, in-game purchases are the bane of their existence. However, on the other end, though, it's tough to stop money once it gets flowing. It truly is. Not to get too deep into how I think the future of earning money will look like, but there's a place for these certain applications in areas where it is harder to make a dollar. And it also serves environments with people who are looking to get more of their dollar. Because let's go back to the clip here. Let's run it for a second. Because I'm pretty freaking sure this ain't the first fight this gentleman has been to. And thanks to having this experience, it will not be his last. This is the value prop with assets like Flow, like Immutable X, like Chili's when I bring it up, Crypto.com. Those networks that focus on bringing the financial element to the sports world, it's really only a handful. This is a hidden pocket, in my personal opinion. This is a hidden pocket of the blockchain space that if you get into, you could get filthy rich. You could very well get filthy rich and no one would ever know. You wouldn't have to tell anyone. Absolutely no one about it. That is why I call Flow a fringe asset, because it operates in an area of blockchain that the mainstream doesn't quite understand. And that's not a knock against anyone's intelligence. I'm merely highlighting that right now, payments make the most sense to people. RWAs make the most sense to people. DeFi makes the most sense to people because you're essentially taking my money and adding utility to it. You're taking my dollar and you're adding utility to it. That utility manifests in so many different forms. This just so happens to be one of them. So, shout out to Flair, man. Shout out to the brother who got to go on that experience. Kind of jelly, but my time will come as well. Just because, hey, don't think I'm just reporting on these applications. I'm using them myself. Can't wait to reap the benefits. So, with that, guys, here's a look at Flow's yearly 39-cent asset here. Again, I'm not telling you to ape in. But if you're looking for a pocket of the space, if you're a niche investor and you want to go to the one spot of crypto that's the quietest, starts with assets like Flare. Okay. But with that, guys, that's today's show. Let me know if you made it to the end. Drop DHN down in the comments. And while you're down there, check out the pinned comment. It'll link you to various tools and resources to help you navigate the crypto space, starting with the DHN Crypto Starter Kit. I put together this starter kit just to give you a primer of what you're about to get into. I know a lot of people are new to this space, and they're about to get hit with a lot of confusion. I put together these documents to help you navigate all of that chaos, as well as the DHN 100, Blockmaster. All of this can be found at the bio site, bio.site/DHN Crypto in the description. With that, hope you guys have a great week. Thanks again for tuning in, and y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.